this building is going to have the best view out of all the buildings in Feathersdale, I think. It's so beautiful. Julien mirror right in front of it. So, I've been wanting to do a little video about something, and struggle with time to do as much reading as I want on things. But there are things that, with me knowing esoterics, stand out in my mind, and it makes me go and research things, if you like, and it allows my brain to put two and two together. Now, the number 7, because I know numerology, the number 7 has always been, in my mind, a very important and very symbolic number of the 7 energy centers of the human body, the 7 chakras. So I began to look at a story that was very obvious to me where the number 7 is in it, and that's Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And it tells the same story as Jericho, for example, where the walls of Jericho come down in the Bible after walking around the walls for 7 days. Now, it also tells the same story as Noah. I'll let you look at that story yourself for the correlation of the 7s and the ark and so on and so forth. They tell the same story in a different way, but it's the same story in the same language as well, actually. So, and that language is mysticism. Now, in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, Snow White is a beautiful princess, and she is to be killed by her stepmother, the evil queen, ultimately, because she's more beautiful than the evil queen. Now, the evil queen represents your ego. It represents vanity. And the pure innocence of Snow White represents the virgin consciousness that can be born inside all of us. So, for those of you who are not fully clued up on the story, Snow White is to be killed by a huntsman, and he can't do it because he's taken aback by her innocence and her beauty, and she is sent into the forest where she finds 7 dwarfs. When she meets the 7 dwarfs, they insist that she becomes a housekeeper of sorts. She has to make the bed, sew, knit, cook, clean, so on and so forth. Very humble work. So the beautiful princess with a life of comfort, with a life of luxury, has to surrender her life of luxury to live with the 7 dwarfs, doing very humble work and humble means. And in exchange, they will protect her and tell her she will want for nothing. So the 7 chakras say when you exchange yourself onto the spiritual journey and you release the need for the material life, you will be wanting for nothing. You will be cared for by that spiritual journey of the 7 chakras. Now, when she first gets to the house, she sleeps in every single bed. She sleeps in 6 beds, and then in the 7th bed, she goes to sleep with a prayer. So when she finishes the journey symbolically of the 7th chakra, she knows she's home, and then the dwarfs appear, and they offer her this protection. So long as she does this humbling work for her, that she becomes this house girl of sorts. So then her ego starts chasing her down. The evil queen, the wicked queen, starts chasing her down. The wicked witch is for another allegory. And she chases her down, and she tempts her 3 times, and she tempts her with vanity. So she tempts her with material vanity, petty vanity. So the first thing is laces to tie up on her dress, and she ties them so tight that Snow White passes out and she loses consciousness. And the second thing is a poison comb, so she sells her a comb to comb her hair to make herself look beautiful, and Snow White does that and she passes out, but the 7 chakras, the dwarfs, come and they save her again. The dwarfs saved her on the first occasion as well. They release the laces. The 7 chakras rescue her from the petty vanity that is being offered to her by her ego, the evil queen. On the final temptation, on the third temptation, she takes that which is physically pleasing to the senses. She takes the apple, which is sweet and tasty, and she takes a bite. She hesitates at first, but the queen tricks her and she takes a bite, who is dressed as a peasant woman selling stuff. She takes a bite of the apple, which is sweet tasting to the senses. It's a food, it's an indulgence of the five senses. And finally, her ego gets the better of her. And in biting the apple, she goes into an unconscious state. So her ego takes away her spiritual enlightenment and she becomes unconscious because she is bogged down by material pleasures, five sense pleasures, such as the sweet tasting apple. Now on this occasion, the dwarfs can't save her. They can't do it. So they bury her. They don't bury her. They place her dead body, what they believe is dead, into a coffin, a glass coffin. So glass coffins are often what saints are symbolically placed in as well in history. Now, most people know the Disney story like I did, where the prince kisses her. But I mean, you can use both stories for that. The other story is the prince comes and finds her, and the prince's workers drop the coffin, and a piece of the poisoned apple dislodges from her throat. So the representation of either way, of the prince taking the body because he's in love with the supposed dead body of Snow White, which is how it is in the original, or he gives her a kiss. Now what that means is that finally, through enlightenment and the union of the masculine and feminine energies, that Snow White is awakened fully and she need not worry about the temptations of the queen anymore. Now I don't know what influence it had on this as well, because in the original story a pair of hot shoes are given to the queen, the ego, and she is forced to dance in them until she dies, which is just sick and bizarre, I know. But it's not so much a children's story when you tell the original. But I wonder whether it's symbolic of the ego dying in the highest stage of consciousness that is deemed as fire. I don't know if there's a correlation. I need to do more research. But ultimately the story goes that the materially abundant person goes to the forest where the seven chakras say, humble yourself with your work and we will provide for you forevermore. And the Snow White, the princess, the materially abundant person, agrees to this. Then the ego attacks 3 times with vain things, vanity, to try and bring Snow White back, to try and bring Snow White down, to say, no, you know, bring your vanity back. And eventually she wins with the third thing, the sweet tasting apple. The 5 senses overcomes and the 7 dwarfs can't save her and she goes into an unconscious state. But what happens is, in actual fact, what eventually does happen is Snow White overcomes that because she finds union. So she completes the journey of the 7 and she finds the masculine-feminine union. And in doing that, there is the wedding and the unionship, and this results in the death of the ego, the death of the queen. Now, this doesn't mean that your ego has to die. It's not what it's about. Your ego can be your friend. But the stories, that's what they tell the story of. And it's the same everywhere, wherever we look. And it's a beautiful language. It's an amazing language. And the more you know this language, the more you can look all over the world at the different stories. And look at the numbers. And it helps you to start learning about numerology and to start learning about energy centers. And the language is there. And we've brought our children up watching them. And we've took them completely over our heads because we don't know this stuff. But if you understand the 7 chakras, you understand all of this. You understand how you overcome the ego to open up your consciousness to a state of Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness. You can understand why and who the wicked queen is. You can understand why the pure Snow White is attacked 3 times with vanity to put her to sleep. You can understand it all. And when you understand it all, the beauty of it, the true beauty of it, is that you can then go that journey yourself. You can go into the woods and live with the 7 dwarfs. You can agree to do humble work with the 7 dwarfs. And in doing that, you will always be protected until you find that union of masculine and feminine, and you ascend, and you achieve Christ consciousness. You achieve cosmic consciousness. You become one with God. So, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs could very well have been a story in the Bible, because it means the same as many of the stories in the Bible. You must raise your energy through your energy centers. You must humble yourself. You must not be too distracted by vanity and materiality. And you must not let the darker side of your ego pull you down and claw you back, the animal nature of yourself. And when you do that, you will find the union. You will find God. And when you find God, you can find out what it is God wants you to do on this planet. So, that's why it excites me. Because I never knew what I was supposed to do until I found God, and God was able to speak to me clearly. So imagine if everyone can learn that language and everyone can hear God as clearly as I've heard God in my life. I can only presume that I would see the planet that I long to live on. So, okay, I'm going to get off and enjoy a little bit more of this sunset. Much love, guys.